What's the most important question you can ask when writing or editing your book? I'll tell you, and there's only one question you need to ask. Hi, I'm Dan Janal. I've written more than a dozen books that have been translated into 6 languages. I'm a book strategist, and I can help you write your book as a book ghostwriter, book coach, or developmental editor. And if I can't help you, I can refer you to someone in my trusted network who can. So let's get started. What is the most important question you can ask when you're writing or editing? Very simple. Write this down. Take out your pens. Does this work? 3 words, 3 simple words. Does this work? When you're writing a story, is the story needed? If it is, great. If it isn't, cut it out. I was ghostwriting a book for one of my clients, and he told me this story, and I wrote it. And after I looked at the first draft, I said, this story does not add anything. It's really just a bunch of words. It's really not needed. So we cut it out. Perfect. Now, when we ask, does this work? It naturally leads to other questions. So the first question, is this story needed? Other questions, is all this detail needed? Sometimes when we write a story, we overwrite. And that, frankly, that's good. I'd rather have too much information than not enough information. There's nothing worse psychologically than thinking you're done with your book, and then an editor says, we need more detail, we need more stories, we need more this, we need more that. Because psychologically, you're closed, you're done. You don't want to start writing again. But so that's why it's better to overwrite in the beginning. But sometimes there's way too much detail. Again, with one of my clients, he wrote a story about his time in the military, and he started with all of his commissions and the places he's been and how he rose through the ranks and whatever. And then he got around to the point where they actually rescued people from a building. It's like, okay, let's start with the part about rescuing people from the building and how they needed to be rescued and why they need to be rescued and why they were there. And if it's necessary, we can work in some of that other background. So look at your stories. Do you have too much detail? Do you start the story at the inciting incident? Or do you start it with some boring background material? Think about it. Does this work? It always comes back to that question. Let's look at some other questions I ask when I work with my clients as either a book coach and developmental editor or as a ghostwriter. Is the information presented in the right order? If you're writing an instruction manual, then of course, some things have to go before other things, open the box, take out the cabinet, arrange the cabinet in orders, take out the screws, arrange the screws in order, then do step A, step B. That's pretty obvious. But if you're doing a memoir or any other kind of narrative book, what has to go first? It's really intuitive and it's really subjective. So you need to have a feel for it. Is it presented in the right order? Is the other question that I would ask. Now, some people write an outline, and I love writing outlines. I think outlines are the key to writing a good book. It's the key to writing a book fast. It's a key to overcoming writer's block because you always know that something needs to be written. But sometimes when we look at an outline, we think it's written in stone. It isn't. You can move things around. As you're getting deeper and deeper into the book, you may decide that chapter 5 is not needed. You may decide that chapter 5 and 6 are really one chapter. You may decide that chapter 7 is really chapter 3. It happens to all of us. That's because as we get deeper and deeper into the story, it becomes clearer and clearer. So it's perfectly fine to modify your outline. Does this work? Let's go down to a granular level. Is this the right word? Is it a $5 word, a $10 word, or a 5-cent word? You decide. Sometimes you have to write for your audience. Here's a distinction in words that you may not have realized. There are Anglo-Saxon words and there are Latin-based words. Talk is Anglo-Saxon. Very simple. Talk. Communicate. That's Latin. Nothing wrong with either of them, but it does affect the tone of your work. So decide how you want to be perceived. If you use more Anglo-Saxon words, it will be seen as more friendly, more approachable, and more dialogue friendly. Let's talk about dialogue. Should there be dialogue? Of course, if you're telling a story, you want he said, she said, back and forth. That adds drama, it adds excitement, it makes it sound real. On the other side, do you have too much dialogue? Again, start with the inciting incident, build up to the climax, and then show the resolution. Dialogue is really important for that. And let's talk about stories just ever so briefly because we have other stories on our channel. You want us to use stories because stories show. We want to show people what's going on. We don't want to tell them what's going on. That's the dichotomy in writing and always has been. Show, don't tell has always been a maxim. If you haven't heard it before, you're hearing it here for the first time. If you tell people what to do, it'll go in one ear and out the other. If you show people what to do through an example, then they will internalize it and they will take that story and that message forever. Finally, and most importantly, will your writing get people to do what you want them to do? What is the point of your writing? Is it persuasion? Is it comedy? Is it drama? Is it to get them to take action? Is it to have them reflect on your story like a memoir? Is it something else? So look at your first draft and say, does this do what I want it to do? In other words, does this work? If you follow these examples and follow these ideas, you'll create a first draft that will work a whole lot better. And when you write your second draft, it'll really be crisp and sharp. You'll use the right words. You'll have the stories in the right order. Your chapters will be in the right order. And you'll get your reader to do what you want them to do. You'll get your readers to feel what you want them to feel. And that way you can go and put your book down and know that you've done the right thing because your book works. You can find other videos on our channel on how to outline your book so you can have a successful book and write your book in a flash.